This is the original recipe. Believe it or not, it works. This is gorgeous. I'm going to be making a pound cake. This isn't my recipe. Well, don't worry, I didn't steal it either. This is Amelia Simmons' recipe. And Amelia Simmons, well, she died a couple of hundred years ago. Thing of it is, folks, Amelia Simmons wrote a book called American Cookery, and that book is listed in the Library of Congress. It's there, but it's in a very special section of the Library of Congress. It's in a section known as Books that Were Formative to the United States. This book, which was American Cookery, written by Amelia Simmons, has a recipe in it for pound cake. It's got a lot of recipes, but this one recipe is the one that we're going to go after. Now, something I would like to mention, if you are interested in that cookbook, please look it up. You can go to the Library of Congress online and get the digital form of that book and read through it. You'll find out a lot about what was going right after, or excuse me, what was going on right after the American Revolution. So this recipe comes from, make sure I get my year right, 1796. Let me show you this. This right here, that's the original the original cover page to this very book that we're talking about. That was just a photograph of it. The recipe itself we'll be going over in just a moment. But folks, it's a historic recipe. It's cool, and I'm going to do my best to just kind of keep it as basic to the original as possible while using modern techniques and products. Let's get in the kitchen and get busy making pound cake. Come on. Pound cake is pretty basic and simple. Our ingredients are as follows. We have sugar, flour, butter, eggs, a little bit of water, and something to flavor it with. This time it's vanilla. Here is our basic recipe. I'm going to be using a glass rectangular pan. This is 13 by 9, and I'm going to grease it up. I'm going to hit it with some flour, so I want it greased and floured. This is to keep your cake from sticking, and this technique goes way back. I'm using lard. You can use lard, tallow, you can use all vegetable shortening if you want. You can use butter. Either way, this works. So go ahead and coat the dish first with this, then with the flour. Shake out the excess flour and move on. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing I want to do is preheat my oven. Depending on the baking temperature you want to use, I'm going to recommend 350 to 375. And that's going to be a very average cooking temperature for cakes of all kinds. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that oven on. I'm setting mine for 350. If you'll see here, my butter is starting to get soft. I'm going to take my spatula and cream it, and that just means to work it and make it a little softer. And then I'm going to work in the sugar. Creaming that in is what that's referred to. Now this is pretty simple, and I think when this recipe was invented, it probably would have been a wooden spoon. I'm fortunate these days in having the spatula, and I don't own wooden spoons, so I'm using this. After working the sugar into this, I will alternate between the eggs, the flour, the water, and at that time, somewhere in there, I'll just put in all of the vanilla at once. So work yours together, and when you have a nice smooth batter, that's when it's time to put it into the dish. We'll get it in the oven and see how well this cake recipe works. So as you see, there's a couple of eggs here. I'm getting this mixed. Add your ingredients just a little bit at a time, alternating in between them until you get the whole thing finally mixed together. I'm getting my batter kind of leveled out inside of my pan there. I kind of want it to be as even as possible, and it'll level itself to a large degree in the oven. But you know, when it's kind of a firm cake batter, I'll say that, and so it needs, I guess, as much help as I can get it. In the meantime, though, I think it's probably going to end up being a good cake. and I'm looking forward to the bake and getting it tasted. It's that tasting that tells you everything, isn't it? Look at this. All right. I think we have it. Time for this to hit the heat. There we go. It's a matter of giving it time. I'm going to check it in 20 minutes and see how it's doing, and then just keep an eye on it from there. After that, I'll be able to tell you about how long this takes. The amount that we used on everything today, it is very simple, folks. What's the name? It's a pound cake. You have 4 basic ingredients plus water and some flavorant. This can be spices, that can be cocoa, and this time it is vanilla. I use 2 teaspoons of vanilla, a half a cup of water, to 1 pound each of butter, flour, sugar, and eggs. So it's a pound on each of those. Now there's also some specific measurements. I measured these out. That's 8 eggs that I used. It was 2 1/4 cups of sugar and 3 1/4 cups of flour, and of course the butter is a pound, so it's pretty basic. That is the ingredients for the pound cake. Now let's take a look at what it looks like when it comes out of the oven with this basic original recipe. This is just out of the oven. It's nice and firm now. I tested it with a toothpick, came out clean. This has been in the oven for about 35 minutes. So it cooked up really well. Kind of interesting in some locations, but let's face it, this is an old recipe. We have to expect some results that are a little different. So there it is. It's kind of pretty. I'll be cutting into this in a little bit, but I want to let it cool. It needs to be cool enough that I can touch this glass dish and be able to handle everything without burning myself or anyone else burning themselves on the cake. I can make large pieces by making a single center cut and then some cross slices, or I could make smaller pieces by doing 2 side cuts, like one here and one here. I think that's what I'm going to do. Now this has had enough time that the dish is cool. It's still warm in the center, but it's not hot, like difficult to touch. It was about a 30-minute cool down period. Well, I am here trying the original recipe for pound cake. The texture is a little more different than I expected. Of course, also I did use a bread flour, a high gluten flour. So it gave me a little different texture, but it was also a little heavier than I expected. But you know what? The mouthfeel is good. It's soft, delicate. Flavor's delicious. This is a really cool cake, and I think it's something that everybody should try at least once. Folks, give it a chance. The original pound cake just might be worth your time. If you would also take a look at my channel, all of the other recipes that I have. Look at the episode number of this video, okay? And that should tell you how many options that you have. Please take a look there. My channel, lots of things to cook there. If you would look right down below in the description box, you're going to see a link to my website, to my other channel, also to this recipe. I'll have this written up nice and pretty in a PDF format that's great to use. Thank you very much for watching, and please, folks, you have a good day, all right? Bye-bye. Man, that's good.